A good crowd.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that we are now streaming live on YouTube, and recording, so that gives us the cue that we're ready to start. And so I would like to call this May 11th meeting of City Council of Charleston meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Del Chapo. Here. Councilmember Shealy.
Here.
Councilmember Saccharin. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah.
Councilmember Brady.
Present.
Councilmember Gregory. Councilmember Waring.
Here.
Councilmember Seekings.
Here.
Councilmember Shade.
Present.
Councilmember Griffin.
Here.
Councilmember Appel.
Here.
Councilwoman Jackson. Here. Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here, and both council members Saccharin and Gregory expressed their regret they would not be able to join us this evening. And I do want to commend Councilmember Brady. He gets an award for attendance in the furthest location. In fact, he chaired a committee meeting this afternoon, and he's in Hawaii, poor fellow.
I am.
All
You look exhausted, Councilmember Brady.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it is 11:05 a.m. local time here.
So the wonders of Zoom and electronics. Glad you could be with us. If you would like to join us, Councilmember Griffin is going to lead us in an invocation.
Thank you all. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today, probably in our greatest time of need. We need your help, Lord. We need you to help us find peace again. We need you to help us find love. We need you to help us look at our neighbors and realize that we all want the common good. No, we may not all agree on everything, but we all love this city, we love this country, and we love you. We really, really need you right now. We need you to help us find a way to treat each other with respect again. We need you to help us find a way to show compassion. We need you to help us think before we act. And I want to close this prayer today, Lord, by sharing my favorite verse from 1 Corinthians 13th chapter. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilmember. I appreciate that very much. Now, if you would join me, if you can kind of see over my shoulder in the distance, our American flag, and we'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United
States
of America, and to the republic
which stands
one nation under God,
one nation
under
under
God,
God,
with liberty and justice for all.
Well, you can visit a Zoom meeting from Hawaii, but I still think the hardest thing is to recite the pledge in unison. Doesn't seem to come off in unison. We still have to work on that, y'all. Okay, we have a few presentations and recognitions this evening. The first up is a proclamation recognizing that this is National Police Week. So if I may share this proclamation with you, and then I'll call on Chief Reynolds and anyone else he would like to recognize from our police department. Whereas there are more than 800,000 law enforcement officers serving communities across the nation, including the remarkable men and women of our own City of Charleston Police Department. And since the first recorded death of a police officer back in 1786, unfortunately, more than 22,611 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty, including 22 members of our own City of Charleston Police. It's important that all citizens understand the duties and responsibilities of their local police, and that members of our own police department recognize their duty, which they do, to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, protecting them against violence or disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. Whereas the names of the dedicated public servants killed in the line of duty are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C., 394 new names of fallen heroes are added this spring, including 295 officers killed in 2020 and 99 killed in previous years. Whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty will be honored during National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund's 33rd annual candlelit vigil on the evening of May 13th. And whereas May 15th is designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families, and U.S. flags and City of Charleston flags should be flown at half-mast, we publicly salute the service of law enforcement officers in our community. And we will have our own memorial service at Brittlebank Park, because we have also engraved the names of those 22 City of Charleston officers on a memorial at Brittlebank Park here in Charleston. Now, therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, on behalf of City Council, proclaim May the 9th through the 15th into Charleston is National Police Week. Chief Reynolds, are you with us? Thank you for your service and of that of all the fine men and women of your department. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for taking the time, I think appropriately so, to remember our fallen heroes. It's not the way that they died, but the way that they lived their lives. I think it's important in this time of division and difficulty to talk a little bit about, I'll tell you, I recruit, I hire, I swear in our new officers, and oftentimes when I do that, they're surrounded by their family, their spouses, their siblings, others, significant others. And I tell them, you know, sometimes some people right now would say, why would you join law enforcement at such a difficult time? And I tell them what I really believe, and that is that there's never been a more important time to be a part of law enforcement. More important opportunity to make a difference, to have an impact. I don't think it's ever been more timely, more relevant, and more able to have a positive impact in serving in our communities. But I also tell them that it's difficult now, probably more difficult, more challenging than ever. And our hiring's going great. Our retention is going well, and we got to continue to work and to make sure that we continue that process. But I'll tell you what is a key ingredient is that the men and women who are out there in harm's way every day, right now as we speak, know that they have our support, know that we care about them, that we're going to equip them, that we're going to train them, that we're going to lead them, and that we're going to support them as they really do difficult work. And a part of that is what we do this week every year, and that is to remember our heroes who lost their lives in the service of our city, our state, our country. And we lost 22 officers, and I think we're going to find through history and genealogy and other things, there's been more than 22. But I just want to thank you for recognizing our families of our fallen heroes. We tell them, and I've been to too many funerals. I hope I never go to another police officer's funeral, but I've been to so many of them, and it is never easy. In fact, it gets harder every one I go to. But we tell their families we will never forget. We tell them that we care about them. We tell them that their sacrifice made a difference. And so thank you so much tonight for recognizing all of our fallen heroes, and specifically their families, their children, and their loved ones who are still alive today, and appreciate that we would spend a little bit of time to recognize their sacrifice and how important they are to us.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Councilmember Shade.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, and I just want to echo the proclamation that we just presented, and thank Chief Reynolds and his command staff and all of the men and women, and just remind everybody that we saw the bravery of our Charleston Police Department this past weekend when a particular officer went into harm's way, disregarding his own safety to come to the aid of other folks down on King Street on early morning hours on Sunday. And that's the type of caliber of men and women that we have in our police department. And if I could just give a huge thank you to all of them, particularly to that sergeant who was out there and place himself in harm's way. Thank you for your service, all of you, and we will remember those fallen men and women who died while service to our city.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, all our men and women of CPD who are online with us. And we'll have our memorial service, I believe, tomorrow. If it's raining, it'll be over at police headquarters. If not, we'll be over at Brittlebank Park. So next we have a proclamation about the fact that this month is also Mental Health Awareness Month. And I would like to call upon Councilmember Del Chapo after I make this proclamation. This was made at her request. Whereas mental health is essential to overall health and well-being. Mental health helps to sustain an individual's thought processes, relationships, productivity, and ability to adapt. That is why ensuring the mental health of our citizens is key to the future of our city. 50% of mental illnesses present themselves by the age of 14, and 75% of mental illness presents by the age of 24. Depression is leading #1 cause of disability in our country, and 1 American dies by suicide every 12 minutes. Early identification and treatment can make a profound difference in successful management of mental illness and recovery. It's important to maintain mental health and learn the symptoms of mental illness in order to seek help when it is needed. Every citizen and community can make a difference in helping end the silence and stigma that for too long have surrounded mental illness and discouraged people from getting help. Therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, hereby aspire to increase public understanding of the importance of mental health and to promote ID and treatment of mental illnesses. And May 2021 is Mental Health Awareness Month in the City of Charleston. Councilmember Del Chapo.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start by saying this. If you are suffering, you're doing your best. You're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. You're not a failure, and it's not your fault. And if you are caring for someone who is suffering and you feel overwhelmed or unsure, you're doing your best. You are not broken. You do not need to be fixed. You're not a failure, and it's not your fault. When we hear these statistics, I hope what landed was just how pervasive mental health conditions are. And it's not a stigma, it's not a taboo. We don't expect you to just get over it. And as elected leaders, we are called upon to ensure public safety. We must make mental health a priority and have open, honest, and sometimes difficult dialogue about how it factors into our society's well-being. We are called upon to protect all citizens, regardless of their ability to protect themselves. And if we're going to talk about health in all policies, narrowing the life expectancy gap, diminishing homelessness, and truly being supportive of our first responders, all initiatives we on this council have discussed, it is imperative that mental health is central to these conversations and how we craft policy. I am so proud of our police department for the measures they are taking to decriminalize mental health conditions. In fact, just yesterday, Team 5 officers saved a woman's life because she felt she had no other options than to end hers. They de-escalated the situation and brought the woman to receive the appropriate care and attention she rightfully deserves. Every single one of our lives is precious and worthwhile, and our mental health is the seed from which all other aspects of our health grow. What a privilege it is for me to serve on the board of NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness for the Charleston area. And I thank you, Mayor and Council, for taking time this evening to acknowledge the significance of mental health And I know NAMI's executive director, Rob, is here with us and has a few words to share as well.
Oh, great.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, Marie, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council. First, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Councilwoman Del Chapo for her contributions to getting this proclamation made. You, Mr. Mayor, the entire council. It takes dedicated public servants such as yourselves to really increase awareness about mental health, its importance, and places to find treatment for those who are suffering from a mental health condition. Ms. Del Chapo is a wonderful example of a public servant who is increasing awareness of the mental health issues, and we could not be more grateful to have her on our board. Thank you, Marie. NAMI Charleston area provides programs for individuals with mental health conditions, their family members, their friends, and others who provide care and support for them. Our focus is on being a resource for our community and as an advocate for mental health treatment and awareness. We believe that everyone who is impacted by mental illness should have access to the care they need. Most of all, we believe that recovery from mental illness is possible. And more than ever, we need to spread that message. Those of us living with mental illness and our families, friends, and loved ones are everywhere, silently suffering in some cases. This proclamation is a wonderful recognition by you, our elected officials, that we care about the mental health of all of our citizens. We need your help, and you'll be seeing me probably too often, but tonight is a great start, and I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you so much for those words and sharing and increasing awareness in our community. And Councilmember Del Chapo, you mentioned a remarkable assist to save a life by our Charleston Police Department. And many of you also saw the incident that occurred on Upper King Street a few weeks ago, where over a 2-day period, our officers de-escalated a situation with a gentleman who was experiencing a mental health challenge. And, you know, rather than a really bad outcome, we had a good outcome of de-escalation and helping him get the assistance he needed and the attention he needed. So this couldn't come together at a better time to highlight National Police Week and the great work that they are doing in our community regarding sensitivity and the training they've had on these issues. So thank you for that. Okay, we've got one more proclamation this evening, and I believe that William Garvey is with us. William is with this United States Coast Guard Auxiliary, because in just a week or so, it will be National Safe Boating Week. And so I'll share a proclamation and then call on William to make a few remarks. Whereas Charleston citizens and visitors alike are fortunate to have plentiful access to a wide variety of recreational boating opportunities due to the high interest in boating as an enjoyable pastime. Our waterways can become crowded, and boating for the unprepared can be hazardous. But not knowing or obeying the navigational rules or rules of the road, drinking or taking drugs while operating a boat, or choosing not to wear a personal flotation device are examples of dangerous, bad boating behavior. Whereas on average, more than 600 people in the U.S. die each year in boating-related accidents, but most of these drownings could have been prevented simply with the use of a flotation device or life jacket. Whereas the vast majority of such accidents are caused by human error or poor judgment and are not the result of equipment failure or environmental factors. And whereas modern life jackets and personal flotation devices are both more comfortable and more attractive than those of years past, it can even be a fashion statement and should be used by all members of the boating public to ensure their personal safety and avoid tragedies. Therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, on behalf of City Council, urge all those who boat to wear life jackets and practice safe boating habits. Have fun, but be safe. I proclaim May 22nd to 28th as National Safe Boating Week in the City of Charleston. Our partnership with the Coast Guard is on many levels. William Garvey is with the Coast Guard Auxiliary. William, are you out there?
I am indeed, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Please proceed. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you for this and to the members of the City Council as well. One of the central missions of the Coast Guard Auxiliary is to keep people safe as they enjoy recreational boating. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, nationally, we lose hundreds of the boating public each year, most of them from drowning, and most of those are not wearing life vests, which can be a very positive fashion statement. You're quite right, Mr. Mayor. This year, because of the pandemic, it appears that there will be many new boaters, their family members and friends who will be taking to the water for the first time, and many of them are likely to be unfamiliar with the rules of the road, as you mentioned, and the appropriate safety equipment that they should be carrying. So your proclamation helps bring attention to those important concerns, and hopefully will encourage all the members of the boating public to learn more and to be prepared for the unexpected. That's a terrible way to end a boating day. So thank you all, and I hope everyone enjoys a happy and safe boating season. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members.
Thank you, William. And I guess on a sad note, but since it's a personal experience, I'll share with y'all. One of those 600 folks last year was a personal friend of mine who lost his life on Lake Murray as a result of another boat driver who was badly intoxicated, a DUI on the water, and took this man's life. And it's so sad. I mean, we talk about it when it happens on the highways, but it happens on the waterways as well. And it's wrong. And I hope everyone will not only have fun on the water, but be responsible on the water. It's you can take someone's life. So anyway, I sadly wanted to share that. Thank you again, William, for being with us and all the work y'all do to keep our boaters safe. We certainly are blessed with access to the water here in this coastal area. So next, we have one public hearing up tonight. This is our City of Charleston Climate Action Plan. So much work has gone into this over the last 6 months, really over the last year and years, and it's been so ably led. It's been so ably led by many community members who have pitched in and helped make this a reality. But the number one person is Katie McCain, our staff member, who oversaw this effort for last year. I don't see her on there she is down on the bottom of the screen. Katie, thank you for just an incredible job getting us this far. But I know you risk shouting out to specific folks when a big group has helped. And if you look at the action plan, Katie has listed in there literally hundreds of individuals and organizations that have helped with this effort. But I just want to shout out to a few kind of special community members who've helped in this effort. One is Stuart Weinberg. And Stuart has been like the master volunteer. He went to conferences on his own in our behalf to learn and to teach us and to engage us. Stuart, you've been remarkable. Danielle Richardson is with us this evening. And likewise, Danielle, thank you for all your efforts. Edgar Seda. Edgar, I saw you on page number 2. You're out there and on the Zoom call. Thank you for your efforts. Christine Von Kolnitz, who serves on our Resiliency Committee and has been remarkable leader of the Sierra Club and the efforts to bring this plan forward. Omar, Mohammed, thank you for your efforts as well. So many individuals help, but I want to shout out to them in particular. And then also thank the city council members who've been involved on the various task force, council members Seekings, Brady, Del Chapo, Appel, Jackson. Y'all have all been a part of this effort over the last 6 months. So there were 31 different working group meetings in total, 7 council members who were part of that process. So Katie, I guess maybe if you have any remarks, I'd welcome you to share them. Otherwise, Madam Clerk, we will open the public hearing and hear from anyone from the public who has signed up to speak. Katie, did you want to make any remarks beforehand?
Yes, Mayor, I had a quick presentation to share, if that's all right.
Great, terrific.
Okay. All right, well, welcome everyone. Thanks so much, Mayor Tecklenburg, and good evening, members of council. So tonight I'll talk to you a little bit about the Climate Action Plan, which is a 5-year strategic framework to reduce carbon pollution and increase our quality of life. So the plan reflects the latest science. It aligns with industry standards, both national and international. It's synergistic with other city plans, and it really emphasizes the importance of ongoing and equitable community engagement. So we are all familiar with the localized impacts from climate change, such as flooding from sea level rise, from high tides, from rain bombs, and even extreme events. I won't go into this in too much of detail, but this really brings to the point why we needed to make a plan to address the impacts of climate change, which is ultimately addressing mitigation. So we embarked on the process of creating our climate action plan last summer when we performed a greenhouse gas inventory. And this report just gives us a snapshot of our emissions from both city government operations and also emissions from the entire Charleston city community as a whole. Then in the fall, we used that data and we embarked on this process by starting with community engagement. And we had our first survey and public meeting where we engaged over 500 people, provided some great input to inform the plan. Then in the winter, the community engagement ramped up even more. We were really lucky to have over 150 people volunteer to serve on working groups. There were 6 new committees that were created, and those groups ultimately crafted the content for the climate action plan. So I can't thank them enough. And then in March, then we went back to the community with the draft action items and strategies, and we asked for more community input via a survey and another public meeting. And then in April, we presented the plan to the Resilience and Sustainability Advisory Committee, and they unanimously supported recommending it to City Council, and that brings us here tonight. So there were 8 different committees that were part of this process, so thank you so much for everyone that was part of it. We had residents, businesses, we had designers, developers, elected officials, technical experts, and city staff were involved too, so it was a real team effort. When we started the process, we looked at these 5 bullets as what a successful climate action plan looked like. And I can confidently say that I think we have checked off all of these bullets. So we wanted to make sure that the plan included ideas and support from a diverse group of community members. We wanted to make sure we focused on climate mitigation because we have a flooding and sea level rise strategy and also a vulnerability assessment that focuses on adaptation. We wanted to be sure we focused on actions the city can control or can heavily influence. We wanted to make sure we're prioritizing it on what our local goals and what our needs are. And last but certainly not least, we wanted to make sure this action plan was centered on equity to ensure that the benefits and the challenges of climate action are shared amongst everyone. So we, all the subcommittees and especially the task force reviewed all the action items with that equity lens, and that really helped to promote equity throughout the process. We also collaborated with the new Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation Committee, and we served on each other's task force and committees, so that was really helpful too. So a really important part of the process. Our vision is really just to reduce pollution in a very equitable way that will not only improve the health, but also the quality of life of Charleston now and also in the future. We must think of those future generations and what we will leave them. So in the plan, there are 12 strategies and 51 action items, as I'm sure you've all seen. I won't go through any of these individually, but if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. You can see the majority of the action items are in that transportation sector. And I'd just like to briefly touch on the co-benefits. So anytime you're taking climate action, it is very common to have so many additional benefits that can also be perks to the Charleston region. So for example, benefits of reducing costs or improving mobility or improving safety or preserving our historic and cultural assets are all co-benefits. And these were all looked at as the actions were studied. Just to give you an example, when we plant more trees, we're not only protecting our air quality and our water quality, but we're enhancing our climate adaptation because those trees absorb a whole lot of stormwater. We are also raising awareness to the community about the value of planting trees and the low cost it is to do that. And we're also beautifying our city. So every action item in this plan has at least 2 or more additional benefits for Charlestonians, which is really neat to see. And finally, I'll just wrap up saying, I know there were a few things that were really important to council especially, and I wanted to make sure I shared that these were captured in the plan with everyone. So of course, we talked about equity considerations. We also highlighted the co-benefits. We included potential partners in the plan. We prioritized the action items based on a rigorous assessment criteria the task force developed. We also identified the approximate costs for each item. Many are low or no cost at all, and we identified some potential funding opportunities we could pursue. And of course, we identified community engagement opportunities. And as we all know, this is so important because it will take the whole community. It takes a village, right, to take meaningful climate action. The city can't do this alone. We really need everyone to do their part. So with that, if there are any questions, I am available to answer them.
Mr. Mayor, I think you're on mute.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So next we'll go to our public comment section, and then we'll come back to council for any comments and questions. I did note that a goodly number of folks signed up to make remarks. And so I know it's kind of short, but if y'all could keep your comments to just a minute, that would be great. And as we go through this, if you hear your idea or comment has already been expressed by someone else, you might just say, ditto or keep a new idea coming to us. So Madam Clerk.
First is Stuart Weinberg.
Thank you. And thank you, Mayor, for your comments. I want to start by reminding the mayor that on February the 15th, 2016, he and I and his wife had breakfast. And we started to talk about how we could possibly create a climate plan for the city of Charleston. And I thank the mayor and of course, Katie, for getting us to this point today. And it's been a real privilege for me to meet with so many members of the community who brought to each of our meetings their experience, their expertise, and working together with members of the city council to create this plan. As you read it, if you haven't read it yet, you'll look at all the assessment criteria that was part of us making a decision on what the priorities would be that we would present to the city council. This is a plan created by the people of Charleston for the entire population of Charleston. And I know that, I hope that the city council will agree and adopt this plan, because I have 3 grandchildren, and I know that some of you out there also have grandchildren, and we want to preserve Charleston for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Libby Smith.
I think most of you have heard of the Lorax, who speaks for the trees, because everyone needs trees. I want to speak for the marshes, the wetlands, and the forests in this area, because everyone here needs the marshes, forests, and wetlands. These are carbon sinks, and they have 2 functions and tend not to be in top of people's minds about climate change. They actually pull carbon out of the air, so it's not there to contribute to climate change. And then they store that carbon underground for centuries at a time. They actually store 5 times more carbon than tropical forests. They're absolutely critical. When these habitats are damaged or destroyed, not only do we lose their ability to pull out of the air, but the carbon that's stored gets released to the atmosphere and contributes significantly to greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Going forward, the City Council will face many decisions which have to do with marshes, trees, etc. I hope they will preserve them.
Thank you, Libby.
David Quick.
Hey, everybody. David Quick. A lot of times I think we need to step back and think about what has transpired in our lifetimes. I'm 57 years old, and we've seen the global population go from 3.2 billion people to 7.8 billion people. Carbon, more than double. We all have a responsibility to make this planet livable, and this plan is our local responsibility. I am a Mount Pleasant resident, and I'm honored that I was part of this, a part of this group of people to design this plan. And I really hope part of the side benefits of this is to be a role model for the greater Charleston area. And my hopes is that Charleston will be a leader and will inspire other municipalities like Mount Pleasant, the island communities to adopt similar plans. And so I really hope you all will cherish the work that's been put into this and pass this climate action plan. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Belvin Olasoff. And if you're on the phone, you can press *6 to unmute yourself.
Sure. I see the climate crisis as a call to action to do the best we can in the situation we're in. And I think that is especially a call to action when you have the reach of a large regional municipality. So I am heartened that the city of Charleston has taken these steps. I think it'll be impactful, both in inspiring the people of Charleston and, like David said, neighboring municipalities and the rest of South Carolina, for that matter. There's a lot of ability here, and what you have is a great blueprint with this climate action plan to do the most we can here in Charleston. So I applaud you for the effort, and I urge you to pass it.
Thank you, Belvin.
Steve Dudash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I'm honored to be a part of this committee, and I think it's a wonderful thing. I'm a landscape architect, regional director at Thomas & Hutton, and I do care about ecosystems. I think the city itself is an ecosystem, and we're at a point of self-determination on how to protect these wonderful assets, as well as grow and become better in the arena of social justice and equitable places. I'll echo the others, but add too that I've been listening today to the Urban Land Institute spring meeting, our organization of about 45,000 people the discussions were exactly what we've been talking about with Katie, and she has done a fantastic job of pulling us all together. So those desired outcomes and the goal settings that we have done are really important. I think now is that action is the key word to move this forward and to start this process and to start the process of how we measure the benefits and what happens if you do nothing as well. So I would like for you to consider to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Omar Mohammed. And if you're on the line, if you could press *6, Omar Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, and Katie for your leadership in the development of this climate action plan. In a changing world increasingly impacted by climate-related hazards, increasing air pollution, extreme heat, sea level rise, and climate displacement highlight the importance of adapting and mitigating climate impacts, particularly for environmental justice communities who contribute the least to climate impact, but are disproportionately impacted by climate reality. I am asking the City of Charleston to adapt and support the local climate action plan. This plan helps us to move to just and equitable solutions to our climate crisis. I want to ditto David's comments about this being a model for other communities to follow, and I am excited on seeing how we can use this particular model to advance a similar action plan in the city of North Charleston. Thank you.
Thank you all, Mike.
Dr. Marie Koester. Apologies if I mispronounced that.
That's fine. Hey, Mary Coster here, Mayor, City Council. Again, hey, I just really want to again lift up the work of Katie McCain and all of the people who centered this problem, as the mayor calls it, an existential problem that affects us all. And it does seem that we've arrived at a threshold in this climate change story in Charleston. You know, the Dutch dialogues that was again brought in by the City Council and the mayor got us to think about why our natural world is so important and how we have to learn to live with water. And I think those echoes from those leaders sort of echo the teachings of eco-theologian James Thomas Nash. And he wrote that real love does not do desperate things, and it does not commit the irrevocable. And I think this plan has all sorts of opportunities for us to look at ways in which we can work together to solve these problems in ways that do not further destroy our environment and that do support equity and inclusion and honor the collaborative story we've begun with the Dutch dialogues. And I'm happy to be participating in this action. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary.
Mm-hmm. Betsy LaForce.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm representing the Coastal Conservation League tonight. Several of my colleagues and I served on subcommittees for this plan, and we all extend our sincere appreciations to Katie McCain for her expert leadership on this work. We applaud the city for taking the initiative to act on climate beyond the work happening already to address local climate impacts from flooding and sea level rise. I had the honor of serving on the waste subcommittee. Actions called out in the waste plan are achievable, and if implemented, could lead to significant cost savings along with reductions from methane emissions. This is critical considering methane gas is about 28 times more powerful than carbon dioxide at warming the earth. So keeping food and organic waste out of landfills is a low-hanging fruit solution to the methane problem, especially considering the resources that exist in our community, like the industrial compost facility at Bees Ferry, just waiting to be utilized to its full potential. Performing a garbage can audit and using that data to evaluate and restructure the way trash collection takes place to incentivize recycling and composting is a necessary first step that will make the other actions possible. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Betsy.
Renee Orth.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I would like to echo the applause to Katie McCain for the hard work she put into this. And I also want to say that this plan is a great start, and it absolutely positively must be passed by council, but it can't be thought of as the whole plan. Unfortunately, it has a big blind spot in it, and that it doesn't consider our consumption-based emissions, meaning all of the greenhouse gas emissions that derive from the food that we eat, the cars that we drive. Obviously, within the car usage within the city is counted, but the actual production of the car isn't counted. Some figures have estimated that for North American cities, our consumption-based emissions are about 3 times our sector-based emissions, which are the emissions that are counted in our greenhouse gas inventory. So particularly anybody who knows me knows I'm passionate about food justice and shifting people away, particularly from red meat. And that's not something that this climate action plan addresses head on the way I think it ought to. So I just want to absolutely support this plan 100% and understand that it's only a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Daniel Richardson. Daniel Richardson.
Can you hear me?
We can. I think you're.
Good evening, Mayor. Can you hear me?
That's better.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for recognizing me earlier. Thank you, Katie McCain. You did a wonderful job leading our climate task force, and I would like for you to, the City of Charleston City Council, to be able to approve our plan because it's a wonderful. I served on the educational committee, and one thing I can really say is that me being a East Side resident, our youth and our citizens in the East Side has been moving forward with learning climate change. We had a wonderful Earth Day event last weekend that included the children from the East Side, and they learned a lot about climate, recycling, gardening, and different things like that. And we have wonderful new trees that's been planted on the East Side, and it will be wonderful to continue having that education and that conversation with our community all over Charleston. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle.
Doug Hatler.
Good evening, Mayor Tecklenburg, the city council members, and all the attendees of the meeting this afternoon. I'm Doug Hatler. I'm an Isle of Palms resident, and it's an honor and privilege to participate as a member of the Carbon Sink Subcommittee. I want to acknowledge Katie McCain and the wonderful work she did, as well as all the others who participated. I'm an environmental scientist, an engineer, and a business executive, and I've spent 35 years balancing economic development, human health, and environmental stewardship. I support the Climate Action Plan. I think it's an evolutionary plan, which aligns well with where the direction of Charleston needs to go for the future. I hope you will approve it, but not only approve it, I hope that the city and all the stakeholders remain committed to its execution fully, funding it with the resources it needs and all the things that go along with, not just approving a plan, but putting it in place. And I also want to close with, I encourage the city to work with surrounding communities like Isle of Palms, because we're all fellow travelers with the city on climate change mitigation and adaptation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Susan Lyons. And Susan was on. She was on earlier.
Susan,
you're on mute.
I see you.
Here I am.
Hey, Susan.
Can you hear me now? I'm speaking actually as a member of the Education Subcommittee of the Climate Action Plan and also as a member of the 3x3 Advisory Committee on Flooding. This Climate Action Plan, the proposed plan, is a thorough and remarkable piece of work that will distinguish Charleston as a forerunning municipality in the daunting effort to cope with climate change. It is a blueprint that guides us all. If we want to protect Charleston from flooding, adoption of this plan is a critical step. And if we want to respond to the challenges of global warming, adopting this plan means that Charleston is committed to doing its part. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Leah Colabello. If you're on the line, if you could press *6.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council members, and a special aloha to Councilmember Brady, who is visiting the island where I was born and raised, a state that is also experiencing the impacts of climate change. The work of my team at Planet Purpose Solutions, a woman-led South Carolina benefit corporation based in West Ashley, includes launching sustainability initiatives for companies across the U.S. and Europe. Much of our work is focused on measuring, reducing, and offsetting corporate greenhouse gas emissions. We have helped several brands achieve climate neutral certification, and our operations are also certified climate neutral. As such, our business is thrilled to see the leadership by the citizens of the city of Charleston, and a special nod to the knowledge, skills, and community engagement talents of Katie McCain in developing the Climate Action Plan that puts forward innovative strategies to reduce the carbon footprint of both our city government operations and the community. I know the path ahead that this Climate Action Plan represents seems daunting, but our business in particular knows what epic leadership looks like, especially with regards to designing and implementing a climate action strategy. And the citizens of the city of Charleston possess the fortitude needed to put the plan in play. I highly encourage the city of Charleston to adopt this plan and support its execution. Thank you.
Christine von Kolnitz.
Good evening, everyone. Christine von Kolnitz here, and I am a member of the Resilient Sustainability Committee, and I'm I am also the chair of the local Sierra Club, representing over 1,000 members in the city of Charleston and in the region. I want to first thank Katie McCain for her excellent leadership, creating this plan. Just fabulous job. And I also wanted to thank the mayor and the city council members who came to meetings, participated, and really added so much to this plan and made it better. I want to, say again that this is a science-based, equity-focused plan, and we couldn't have a better plan. I want to urge the council to vote to adopt and implement this plan. And I'd also like to let you know that there are thousands of members in your local community who would like to volunteer to help implement this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Chris Carnival. If you're on the line, if you could press *6.
Hi, I'm here. Just want to say thank you, Mayor and Council, for letting us speak. And I'll echo all the praise to Katie for leading the community engagement portion of developing this plan. I was on 2 subcommittees relative to buildings and transportation, and I was very impressed by how many people were invited into the process and how thoroughly all of our ideas were solicited and followed up with. Katie very methodically and patiently made sure that all the committee members who had ideas had the opportunity to put them forth and discuss each and every action item that was suggested, with every action item voted on the number of criteria to rank them in terms of importance and effectiveness. So I just wanted to say thank you, Katie, and thank you for considering this. Charleston is clearly on the front lines of climate change. Scientists have said, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Alec Cooley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I was a member of the waste subcommittee and also was involved with helping to put together that component of the plan. And I echo many of the things that others have said. What I would add is just the observation that what the city is facing now with all this work, the billions of dollars that we're having to invest into drainage, into potentially building a wall around the city, all this is a direct result of past decisions that were made that did not take the threat seriously when we had information. What this plan represents to me is our opportunity as our generation to take that first step in making sure that we don't leave a similar or worse burden for future generations. So I wholeheartedly endorse the plan and encourage the city council to adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Katie Zimmerman.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. It's really good to see all of you. I feel like I haven't seen council members in a very long time. I'm Katie Zimmerman, hi, council member, Executive Director of Charleston Moves. And I know you all are going to be shocked when I say that I am really supportive of the complete streets elements of this plan. I know that's a big surprise to everybody. And I am also a resident of the city of Charleston. But just one of the really great things about this plan, especially when it comes to the transportation elements, is keeping in mind that transportation emissions have now become the #1 source of climate changing emissions in South Carolina. The fact that Charleston County is the most dangerous place in the state to walk or ride a bicycle, and that includes walking to or from bus stops. It's so important that we are getting a handle on these safety elements that also have the added benefit of reducing our impact on the climate and on our ecosystem. And the only way that we are going to be able to encourage more people to have, thank you.
Thank you, Katie.
Ray Huff.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll also echo the extraordinary work that Katie McCain did, just pulling this process together, but also to the mayor for taking the lead with regard to the city as well as city council. I'm an architect. I'm also the director of the Clemson Architecture Center here in Charleston. And I just want to take a moment to support this effort, the Climate Action Plan, and applaud the city for taking this next step toward an integrated approach to contending with global climate change. As a coastal city, Charleston is inarguably at a crossroads. While the city can't alone ward the challenges of global climate change, it must do everything possible to prepare our community and the region to buy time. There's simply too much at stake. So I do hope City Council will advance this matter, and thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ray.
Skyland Landry.
Hi, good evening, council members. I just want to take a moment to applaud the inclusion of several initiatives related to composting in the Climate Action Plan. Composting in many ways is more important than recycling. I'd like to echo Betsy LaForce's statements about composting potential here in Charleston. Landfills with rotting food are the third largest producer of methane gas from human activity in the United States. I've compiled some facts about composting, many of which can be found in online resources from the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, a really great national organization that I got to connect with last year at the U.S. Composting Council's National Composting Conference in North Charleston, where I was able to volunteer all week, having just transitioned out of my staff role at the College of Charleston Office of Sustainability. Adding compost to soil improves not only the soil quality in many ways, vastly increasing the number of beneficial microbes in the soil, but also protects against erosion, drought, and desertification, as well as reducing the need for use of chemical fertilizers. Improving the health of soil with organic matter also cleans stormwater by capturing and breaking down anywhere from 60 to 95% of pollutants, as well as retaining more water, helping to mitigate incidents of runoff and flooding. According to another statistic that can be readily found, published by the NRDC, every 1% of organic matter added to soil can help absorb an additional 25,000 gallons of water per acre. Please vote yes on this initiative.
Thank you for that fact-filled minute. Thank you, Skyland. That was great.
Jonathan Ramirez.
Hey, this is Jonathan right here. So I'm trying to turn my camera. But first of all, Katie, great job on this. You deserve a bonus for all this. But council members, I am urging you, I am demanding you, I am pleading with you to vote yes on this. For the future of our kids, for the future of our city. Charleston cannot continue to be the greatest city in the world if it's underwater. So we have to do our part. We have to take the first step to do what we have to do to protect the city. And so I am asking every council member to vote yes on this.
Thank you.
Monice Russo. Monice Russo.
Hi, I believe that was Monica. So I'll give it a go if that's for me. I am enthusiastically in support of a climate action plan for Charleston. I'm a Charleston resident who lives in a low-lying area like many of you, which is prone to frequent tidal flooding, and I have a serious and looming concern about detrimental flooding, property destruction, and property value decline. So I think this is a great first step to get us headed in the right direction with that. Additionally, being community-based, my company just also committed to reducing their carbon footprint in Charleston through an environmental, social, governance assessment. So with Charleston businesses really starting to step up and tackle and focus on this issue, I think it's the right time for us to do that as well.
Thank you so much.
Kelly Thorvalson.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'm representing the South Carolina Aquarium tonight. And I also just have to start by applauding Katie McCain for her leadership on this effort. It was really an impressive process. The plan you have before you takes into account not only the reduction of greenhouse gases, but it's steeped in equity and feasibility. Charleston is on the front lines when it comes to feeling the effects of climate change. I personally have to shift my travel every month because of sunny day flooding that comes with king tides. And you couple that with increased rain and storms, increased development and the loss of green infrastructure, and the problems seem insurmountable, but they're not. By reducing the city's greenhouse gas emissions, we'll greatly increase the resilience of our community, natural ecosystems, and to climate risk. We'll be healthier doing it because one of the greatest co-benefits to a good climate plan is that air and water quality greatly improve. That's a win-win. By adopting a thoughtful, executable climate action plan, you'll inspire others to do the same. We encourage you to pass this tonight.
Thank you, ma'am.
Leslie Scarden.
Good evening. Thank you all. I served on the education subcommittee and want to commend the city council, the mayor, and the city for taking this on. It's no secret that we are on the forefront of climate change and sea level rise, but with great challenges come great opportunities for innovation and for Charleston to continue to be a leader and set an example to not only the rest of our state, but across the South, the East Coast, and the nation. One of the biggest challenges we face in getting folks involved is that this seems too big of an issue to tackle. So instead of taking action, we shut down individually. This plan gives citizens manageable actions that they can take to create a difference and help us tackle this issue. Thank you again to the council, and well done.
Thank you, Leslie.
Ashen Drolet.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. Cashin Drolet with Historic Charleston Foundation, speaking in support of the Climate Action Plan before you this evening. HCF was proud to serve on the building subcommittee of the task force, and we believe the Climate Action Plan highlights and dovetails with much of the resilience work on which we've been collaborating with the city in recent years, including underscoring many of the recommendations made in the Dutch Dialogue's Charleston final report, such as a rainproof Charleston, keeping residents out of risky flood-prone areas, and protection of the tree canopy. The draft plan also embraces historic preservation and views it as a means to achieving climate resilience. After all, the greenest, most sustainable building is the one that is already there. It reduces resource and material consumption and puts less waste in landfills. And the plan also recommends design standards for renewable energy, and that's something that the BAR is working on now with regard to guidelines for solar panels. HCF looks forward to continued collaboration on climate resilience with City Council and City staff, and thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening.
Thank you, Cashin.
Edgar Seda.
Hello, everyone. I was part of the Climate Action Task Force and served on all 5 subcommittees. This plan brought people from all walks of life that really gave their time because they knew the importance of it. This plan not only aims at having a more equitable and sustainable community 20, 50, 100 years from now, but addresses concerns that we are facing today. Climate change for this community is at its front step, and to many, it is at its door even on sunny days. The city has an opportunity to be leaders in climate action and serve as a model for municipalities throughout the Lowcountry and the state of South Carolina. And I say this as the former sustainability coordinator for Charleston County. It is every responsible government's duty to take action and heed this call and ensure a sustainable and equitable future for all. Council members, if any of you are having any doubts, ask yourself one simple yes or no question. Is this for the good of the community? I believe that the answer is yes, so I implore you as a member of this community, as a father of 3 young children, and as a public servant to support and adopt the Climate Action Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Brian Cordell.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, my nonprofit organization, the Sustainability Institute, has had the pleasure of building subcommittee where we helped strategies for making Charleston stock of buildings, including residential, commercial, government, and industrial buildings, more energy efficient. We're proud to support the recommendations and priorities that are found in this plan, and like many other organizations, intend to provide a team of people and a host of programs and resources to support implementation. This plan and what's to come after, it's really important and exciting work that demonstrates that Charleston can lead on the environment, as well as be committed to efforts today that benefit the generations of people that will be here in the future. And as an organization that's participated in and advised a number of climate action plans and efforts in the region, I was really hoping for a no-nonsense approach to taking this on, and this was absolutely that. It was really grounded in identifying cost-effective, high-impact, equitable, and universally supported strategies that are actually feasible. So I just want to thank City Council and Katie McCain for their work.
Thank you, Brian.
Emma Abrams.
Good evening. I'm a high school student here today on behalf of James Island Charter High School's Environmental Sustainability Club and on behalf of future generations of Charleston in support of the Climate Action Plan. I've lived in Charleston my entire life, and in my lifetime, I've experienced firsthand the impact of the changing climate on our coastal community. In South Carolina, young people are tired because we are seeing the impacts of climate change in our everyday, day-to-day life, and then we are often seeing our elected officials dragging their feet. This inaction has dangerous impacts as the Southeast is currently experiencing brain drain and outmigration of young, educated, and often disillusioned individuals. Today, we have an opportunity to protect our communities and give hope to young people because today our elected officials are not dragging their feet. This climate action plan represents a bold step away from inaction and towards working for a better future for younger generations. I'm often ashamed of the Low Country's lack of action on the many crises of our time. But if this climate action plan is passed today, I can say I am proud to be a South Carolinian and proud to be a Charlestonian. Thank you all for your time, and thank you for your dedication to this and for working for a better future for the younger generations.
Wow, Emma, you make us proud. Thank you so much.
Sully Sullivan.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thanks for having us here. And this climate action, I hope, can be as progressive as it reads. I just want to mirror what Alex said. If you drive up and down East Bay Street, you know, we talk about saving our wetlands. All you see are new developments being built in our wetlands. You also, we put in place for plastic ban. There's plastic everywhere. I'm tired of doing trash cleanups to clean up after it. Again, I want this to go through and it needs to pass. You say you want liberation and equity for all. I don't see anyone in Rosemont, Silver Hill, Garden Hill, talking to us about this plan. You want to build a seawall around the entire city. Let's think progressive. Let's be forward thinking with this. We can if we can build up an entire beach on Folly, Isle of Palms, and Sullivan's, we can do it around our city instead of building a wall. Also, you want to talk about mental health. That's what my wife does for a living. Stop taking away our parks. You know, you want to build a low line. It's amazing, but there's parks under there that exist. The lights don't work. People walk their kids back and forth to school under there every day. Be progressive to things that exist already, and people need access to this city, not just white people. There are tons of other people that need access to this, not just tourists. We live here, we support the city, and we support you doing this. Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Marcus McDonald. Marcus McDonald.
Hello, City Council. My name is Marcus McDonald. I'm calling as a representative of CHSD alum and the Commission on Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Reconciliation. I serve on the Environmental and Health Disparities subcommittee, and I also was able to sit on several different committees on this health action or this environmental action plan. And I want to urge all City Council members to vote for this climate action plan. I want to commend Katie for all of her hard work and putting this together, and also serving on the Commission on Equity. I want to lift up what people have been saying about equity and the reason we have to be so intentional about it. And if you want to look at the social equity lens on this report, you can find it on page 10. But the reason we have to be so intentional about it is because Charleston has a history of ignoring the Black communities here. And there's a reason why the flooding has gotten so bad in some of these areas. And we hear every day when we're out in the communities that people are tired of this. They've been asking us for as long as they've been here, and they've been ignored by people who may not be of y'all, but like people who send seats before you as well. So we urge everybody to vote for this action plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus.
Blake Scott. Blake Scott. Marlo Shedlock.
Thank you, Mayor, Council members, and Katie. I'm representing Surf Rider Charleston and Adopt a Highway Charleston, and I was honored to serve on the Waste Subcommittee. I encourage you to pass this plan. I'm just going to say ditto to everyone that came before me. But I encourage you to pass this plan. As someone who spends their free time pulling trash out of storm drains or marshes, picking up our roadways, I especially applaud the lifestyle awareness and zero waste portion of this plan. What I like to always tell my volunteers when I head out there to do cleanups, it's a very easy slogan, but no wetlands, no seafood. And we all know how we would feel about that. So whether you enjoy eating a crab sandwich or looking at the dolphins out in the ocean, we need to pass this plan. And thank you for your time.
Great, thank you.
Darcy Everett.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members and Katie for your leadership. I was honored to sit on the Climate Action Planning Task Force and the Buildings and Waste subcommittees, and I believe that this Climate Action Plan is a positive step forward for Charleston in beginning to mitigate the negative impacts of a changing climate. I'm also the climate manager at the College of Charleston and feel this plan closely aligns with my work and provides a great roadmap for us to develop similar action items for climate mitigation and adaptation. And I applaud the city for taking this step forward and for bringing together a broad range of stakeholders during the creation of this plan. And I also believe this plan is a strong match for the vision of many of the students that I work with for a Charleston that is climate focused and climate ready. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Kendra Stewart.
Good evening. I'm director of the Riley Center for Livable Communities at the College of Charleston and serve on the city's Resiliency and Sustainability Advisory Committee. I also want to congratulate Katie, Mark, and the rest of the task force for all the work they did on creating the Climate Action Plan with a process that was highly inclusive and equitable, involving significant public engagement and expert advice, which, as we have seen tonight, has led to broad and inclusive community support. This plan is a real opportunity for the city to be a leader. We're a little behind the curve in passing other efforts to reduce our environmental impacts, such as the plastic bag ban, but the passage of this plan would, as we've heard, allow Charleston to serve as a model regionally, statewide, and even nationally. Major anchor employers in our area, such as the College of Charleston, MUSC, and Boeing, are all working to reduce their environmental impact, particularly in regard to greenhouse gas emissions. So I think it is critical that our city do the same and lead us all in this effort. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I encourage council to approve the Climate Action Plan for implementation.
Thank you, Kendra.
Annie Duran. Annie Duran.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
ma'am.
Great. Thank you so much for having me on. I pretty much reflect a lot of the things that have been said tonight, so I'll keep this brief, but I just want to say I'm so proud of this plan. I think it looks at things from so many different angles. Obviously, so much work has gone into it. I know it hasn't been easy. I also want to acknowledge that I know that implementing it is not going to be easy. I'm sure there's some doubt, some pushback, even among the city council members, there may be some doubt. But I would challenge you to ask yourselves and others, do you have a community of experts who have put in their time, their 10,000 hours, just to, look into, what needs to happen? And would you be willing to risk the quality of life of the future of our city on that opinion? So, I think it's really important to lean on the experts here. And fully in support of the plan. And thanks to everyone who worked on it.
Thank you much.
And we also received 20 comments in support of the Climate Action Plan to achieve short and long-term science-based emission reduction goals and protect the city's coastal communities. And those are all the comments that we had.
Great. Well, thank you, all of you who participated in those wonderful comments. And I think it's unanimous acclamation that Katie McCain did a fabulous job pulling all this together. So now the matter comes to City Council.
Move for approval.
A second.
Second.
To approve and a second. Any discussion? Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we're always conscious of time, but I really can't pass up an opportunity to speak to Katie McCain in particular, and to all the members of the amazing committee work that was done to produce this. I want to give special 2 shout outs to District 12 residents who've taught me everything I know about climate and the challenges that we have in the area, Stuart Weinberg and Libby Smith. And they, I feel like I've just learned at their knee ever since I moved here. And when I was considering filing to campaign for office, I went to introduce myself to Libby, and I heard all about the wonderful 2007 Green Plan. And then the sad part about that was it had been received, but never adopted. So I think we have a chance to do the do-over here. I'm regretful that it's how many ever years later. And my grandson is going on 4 years old. So I joined Stuart and Libby and all the grandparents and all the parents of young children on this meeting to say, we have got to do something. And I look forward to voting yes to adopt the plan and work it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? I would just want to make a brief comment. I thank Katie and all the folks who have been involved in this. And it's been mentioned that Charleston has kind of been on the front line of dealing with the impacts of climate change. This is a real step, meaningful step for us to deal with the root causes of that dilemma that we've been dealing with. And sometimes when you develop a plan and pass a plan and it's 50 pages long, it can kind of get lost. And I want to point out one page, not only to our council, but to our citizens, and challenge our citizens. If you do nothing else, take a look at this one page. It says, take climate action today, Charleston. And it's a simple list of things that we can all do personally and in our homes to make a difference in addressing climate change on our planet. And it's that old saying of thinking globally, but acting locally. And here on this one page are some great suggestions that all our citizens could be involved and be part of the solution and making a difference. So I just offer that challenge to everyone. And of course, this has my wholehearted support. Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think one reason we're speechless is because we had such great comments from everybody that participated on this. They said it all, and they said it the best way. I do want to thank Katie for all her work. She brought an enthusiasm to this that made it exciting, and I know we all appreciated that. So obviously I'm a vote in support of this. And Charleston should lead. I mean, we are a seaport town by the sea. We should lead in this. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other comments, questions? Councilmember Rappel.
Mayor, I'll make this real quick. I remember, 2009, 2010, when the Green Plan was up before council. And of course, I wasn't on council back then, but I was following along. And I remember it just being a very controversial, divisive thing on council. And I'm expecting a unanimous vote of approval here tonight, if not something very close. And I just think that speaks a lot about the consciousness of this area and really of our society. I think there's a realization that this is real and there's stuff we need to do about it. So thanks to everybody who's been involved, and I think that this is a great step in the process. Thanks.
Great. Anyone else? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Please let the record show this was a unanimous approval this time by council. Thank you all for your involvement. So next up on our agenda is approval of our city council minutes.
Second.
Any corrections, additions, deletions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next up, I think most of our participants tonight have already spoken on this matter, but it's now citizens participation period. Madam Clerk.
Yes. Would you like to set a time limit? We have, I believe, 2 people who signed up. We had another 2 people who signed up who I think also spoke during the public hearing. So I wasn't sure if they wanted to speak again. So we've got 4.
Okay, let's say 2 minutes.
Tony Daniel, if you're on the line, if you could press *6. Tony Daniel.
Good afternoon, Council and Mayor. This is Tony Daniel calling from Boone Island, founded by John Boone in 1682, who was banished by the Lord proprietors, as I am also banished, but I know why he was banished. I don't know what I have done wrong. I ask that you follow the George Washington rules of behavior, just like you asked me to act in a certain decorum. I also ask that you define the difference between a barricade and a closed road. Please, somebody tell me what the difference between a barricade and a closed road is. Also would like to know why our signs are different than the ones on Inverness, which for over 60 years was part of the Harborview School access point. And Ms. McCain, if you could come out to my house, you can see climate change from the illegally parked cars that are killing our bushes and trees beside the highway. Thank you very much. I would like to add that I have empathy for the Charleston City Police. The chief was talking about going to soldiers' funerals. I was commander of the higher headquarters of the 14th Quartermaster Detachment, the unit that got hit by the Scud in Saudi Arabia. 81% were killed or wounded. That included 99 wounded and 28 killed. So I've been to my share of funerals also. City Council, I respect your opinion, but I do ask that I be treated the same as everyone else. The black and white signs do not work. I've taken at least 40 pictures of the driveway blocked. Please get us the same signs that are on the other side of the neighborhood, red and white. That's the one people pay attention to. And we'll solve the rest of the traffic problem because I know the school is working on it. So we'll give them a chance to solve it, but just unblock my driveway with the proper sign. And Mayor, I'd like to have breakfast by Zoom with you sometime since you had a breakfast meeting so you can see me in person and meet my father. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service.
Miguel Torres. Miguel Torres, if you're on the line, if you could press *6.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. First off, Mayor, I'd like to lodge a formal complaint against Council Member Ross Appel for the meeting on April 27th of this year, where Mr. Appel basically mocked me in a public forum by waving his hand in the air, degrading me and demeanoring my manner while I was speaking as a lower class citizen and or as an insect. He did this with both hands. It can be viewed on the YouTube of the City Council meeting at 1 hour, 28 minutes, 52 seconds. This is very unprofessional. I've had many years in the military, over 21 years of active duty also, a lot of funerals also, a lot of professional men and women. I have yet to see such a disgusting manner of being treated by anyone. I sent you a letter, Mr. Mayor. You have not responded. I guess maybe you're too busy. It's been over 2 weeks. So as of tomorrow, it'll be 2 weeks. This kind of behavior is rude, cannot be condoned. It seems like our city has moved forward, but yet we have not made any progress. Once again, I would like a formal apology from Mr. Appel on this matter. Next, once again, every single day, my driveway is also blocked. I cannot get out. I cannot get in. Mr. Appel took it upon himself and stated in writing that he is the one that has stopped the legal signs from being put up. Now, I don't know where a city councilman gets that kind of power to basically make an unsafe condition and or break the law. There is a code, and there's also people take oaths. Some people take an oath and it means nothing to them. I've taken many oaths in my life and it has meant everything to me from when I was a Cub Scout until I was retired. And thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Renee Orth. And Ms. Orth, I didn't know if you wanted to speak at citizens participation as well. Renee Orth. Skyland Landry. And that was all that we had for citizens participation. We did receive some comments. We had one person that submitted 5 separate comments referencing city council minutes from 1976 where there was a unanimous vote that it was unlawful to close or barricade roads. One person said the city owed his father, a longtime resident of Charleston, a duty of care. One person referenced section 28-25 and provided an example of a barricade in a city publication. One person requested city council to provide a written definition of a barricaded road from either city, state code, or legal dictionary. And those were all the comments that we received.
Great. Thank you, Madam Clerk. We appreciate that. And let me let council know that for some reason I'm not getting everybody on the one screen, so I may not see you if you're raising your hand. So please speak up if you need to be recognized, or Madam Clerk, if you see someone, let me know. So next is our petitions and communications. It's a resolution to proceed with the November 2021 elections using the current district maps. Susan Herdenia, are you going to present this?
Yes, Mayor. So we are requesting this resolution so that it is clear that the November elections will go forward as planned. And also, we are proposing that while I know City Council is of the mind to adopt an ordinance after the district maps are approved and drawn, to require special elections only in the districts where there's no representation or multiple representation. We are requesting that City Council authorize the legal department to continue to research these issues, and we can advise council appropriately after the maps are drawn and approved by council.
All right.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I think Councilwoman Del Chapo had her hand up earlier.
Oh, great. Councilmember Del Chapo.
I did, and I apologize. I thought I shot my hand up early enough, but I think I missed it. I actually wanted to make a motion to amend or to add to the agenda under section I. So I don't know if we want to go ahead and proceed with I1 and then come to me to what I would like to add under this section.
Yeah, could I come back to you on that since we have a motion on the floor?
Yep.
Okay. Absolutely. Any other comments or questions on
Mr. Mayor?
I number 1?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Susan, I have a question for Susan. So Susan, as I read the 4th whereas clause in here, that does not restrict the options that are available. That's just one of the options that could be considered. Is that how I'm reading this?
That's correct. Basically, what this resolution does is says, notifies the public, and with your all approval, that the November elections are going forward, that the maps will be withdrawn once we have the census information available, maps will be approved, and that council, we understand, is, like I said, of the mind to look at a specific option, which can be voted on by ordinance at that time. And other options may be also presented at that time.
Thank you, Susan, for that clarification.
All right. Anyone else? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. And Councilmember Del Chapo, I'll recognize you now.
Thank you. I would like us to add under section I, amend the agenda to add for consideration, continuation for 30 days, the mayor's ability to call a curfew in coordination with the police chief.
And I second that, Mayor, as well. And
Okay.
I think we've got 10 days left on the on that curfew, and I think that we need to add that extra 30 days.
All right. And this is just to add it to the agenda at this point.
Right.
Susan, did you want to add a comment?
Yes, Mayor, if we're adding it to the agenda, we do need a motion seconded with a 2/3 vote approving adding it to the agenda. And then if we're going to go ahead and vote on the emergency ordinance, which would be amending the one that's in effect now, we would also need a 2/3 vote and a finding for both the motion and the substantive decision. We need a finding of an exigent or emergency circumstance.
Understood. We'll see if we got the necessary majority of 2/3 and maybe Councilmember Del Chapo or someone seconding the motion
Already seconded, Mr. Mayor.
could state that exigent, if that's the right word, circumstance. So
Just so I don't have to say exigent or whatever. I think in light of still some things happening around the nation, in our own communities, residents and businesses would like a continuation of this option at the mayor and chief's disposal. Again, it's a last resort. It's not something they're just going to do for the sake of doing. It's a last resort in order for the public safety to allow it to continue a bit longer while we continue to see how some things in the media play out.
I second it.
Not any immediate threat here, but just as things are ongoing.
Right. I think that satisfies the requirement. Wouldn't you agree, Susan? Let's vote to add it to the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And now for the motion itself.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Councilmember Del Chapo. So next up is our update on the city's response to COVID-19. I'm going to call on Tracy McKee to give us a quick update. She'll share with you, but as many of you do read the numbers every day, Charleston County had a total of 12 new cases yesterday and only 10 today. I think that's the lowest number we've had in a long, long time. So we are really coming out of this. Tracy, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. Try to keep this brief tonight. So we continue to see our cases go on a downward trend here in the city of Charleston, which is great. We've actually seen almost a 40% decrease just over the past 2 weeks. So we've been on this really steady downward trend. And we haven't seen a 7-day average this low since early June of last year, just before the big surge in the summer. So as you might imagine, all of our operational indicators are green and have been green. So what that means is from internal operations, we are moving to our final phase of COVID phases, which is phase 4, which simply means that we are going to be transitioning to normal operations, but while adhering to the mask and social distancing guidance that's put forth by DHEC and the CDC. So we'll continue to adhere to those, but we'll be monitoring those that guidance very closely and making adjustments for internal operations. Hospitalizations are remaining low. MUSC is actually reporting a very low census of their COVID-19 patients. So that's a really good indicator of that the vaccines are working, number one, because so many of our older people have been vaccinated, and that's preventing, they believe, hospitalizations, or keeping hospitalizations down as well. A couple of tidbits from the team over at MUSC. I want to thank Dr. Hirschhorn and Dr. Sweat for providing us with some information. Little update on variants. I gave a brief update on variants last month. MUSC's continued to sequence positive COVID tests around the state. And you can see from this chart, if we look at the April, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but in April of 2021, a significant increase still in the presence of variants. Basically, what this chart is showing us that about 85% are from variants of concern or variants of interest. They were a little bit lower last time I reported this. And actually 60%, or approximately 60% are from the UK variant, which is actually shown to be 50% more transmissible and has the potential to have an increase in severity of the disease. So greater impact to those who get it. So if you haven't been vaccinated yet, hopefully this will get you thinking about it. Vaccination really is our way out. If we look at cases over the last couple of weeks in the Tri-County area, we can see that those with no immunity have, and that's from either being vaccinated or from having prior infection, they are 157 times more likely to get COVID and become sick from COVID than those who have some sort of immunity from vaccination or from being having a prior infection. Sorry. Again, looking at this 2-week trend, so some really interesting things that they shared with me today. If we look at the 2-week trend in South Carolina, counties with less than 40% of vaccination rates actually continue to have a positive increase in their growth rate. So 40% is what they're finding, at least in the data currently. A threshold is kind of important. Those with at least 40%, their growth rate is actually negative 17%. And those are statistically significant. So, and then of course, natural immunity does play into that as well. But the takeaway here is really that high vaccination was the most protective in community transmission. So we need to continue to push to and encourage folks to get vaccinated. Distribution. That it kind of has been fairly steady. This is reported from the CDC about what we are getting in the state of South Carolina regarding vaccines. If you are still looking to get a vaccine, the best place to find the location to do that is to go to the South Carolina DHEC Vax Locator, and they have the most current providers that are accepting vaccine appointments. Probably most people have seen that Pfizer is now open to those 12 and older. That has started today. Children 12 to 15 have started to become vaccinated today, and that is 2-dose. Moderna is available to anyone 18 and older, as well as the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is a 1-dose and also available to those 18 and older. How are we doing as a country? I kind of highlighted, I think the takeaways from this shot is we're at 46% of at least 1 dose in the US and almost 35% that are fully vaccinated. South Carolina, we're at 43% with at least 1 dose and 35% fully vaccinated. I apologize if you can hear dogs barking in the background. And then lastly, city employee cases. We currently have 1 active case. We've had 283 cases since the beginning of the pandemic, and we are trending right along with South Carolina with 43% of our staff fully vaccinated. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions anyone might have.
Thank you, Tracy. Anybody have any questions for Tracy? For some reason, I'm not seeing everybody on one screen, so just speak up if you have a question or want to be recognized.
Okay.
All right. And did Shannon Scaff have anything for us this evening? I know they've continued to promote the vaccinations. We still have the vaccination station open over at 180 Lockwood in the former DMV that MUSC is operating. It's open every day. They now take folks without appointments. It's best to have an appointment, but you don't need one. Just keep spreading the word. You saw those statistics from Tracy. It really makes a difference in terms of transmission and health to be vaccinated. So we strongly encourage folks to do that. So Susan, if you will pick back up and lead us through these couple of emergency ordinances that we have before us.
Yes, sir. Item one, I3 is an extension of the emergency ordinance suspending the off-street parking requirements in certain areas of King Street. The emergency ordinance would continue this until July 10th. We think that this is an important step in the recovery effort of the business district. And so we are recommending that this emergency ordinance be approved. Again, the planning department is working with legal to propose a permanent ordinance along these lines and would expect to have it to you hopefully before this ordinance would expire. So that's item I3, Mayor.
So move.
Second.
To pass and a second. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Susan, there was recently an executive order an hour or two ago by Governor McMaster. Do you know how that impacts any of our emergency orders?
Well, I do think it would impact our mask ordinance and some other restrictions, but the timing of the executive order and this meeting is perfect because actually the next item I'm going to talk about details how we are basically eliminating or allowing the mask ordinance to expire. So my reading of his executive order, and again, it just came out, but it looks like it is primarily focused on mask ordinances that we might have had in effect, as well as it deals with vaccination passports. But I did not read anything in it that would seem to impact this emergency ordinance or a few others that we're going to talk about in a second. The state of emergency is continuing in South Carolina, so I do think we do have the authority to continue to implement certain of the emergency ordinances.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions on this ordinance for the parking relief? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And next up, back to you, Susan.
Yes, sir. So item I4 and I5 are somewhat related and both deal with the question that Councilmember Griffin just raised. And what we are proposing in the resolution I4 is that we are going to basically ask that certain ordinances no longer be in effect. And those ordinances are listed in the fourth whereas clause and consistent with the governor's order, as well as taking into account the information that Tracy has just discussed and looking at the direction from the governor that any emergency order should be nearly tailored to the circumstances. We felt that it was important to recommend that the local state of emergency be rescinded, the emergency ordinance number 2021-041 relating to face coverings be rescinded, the emergency ordinance 2020-38 prohibiting price gouging related to COVID, and also emergency ordinance number 2020-069 relating to decreasing the risk of exposure to COVID-19 in retail businesses be terminated. All of those emergency ordinances would be terminated effective tonight if this resolution is approved. However, we are also asking that and strongly encourage the citizens and the tourists, businesses to continue to follow CDC and DHEC guidance on facial coverings, as well as social distance and other recommendations to reduce the transmission of COVID, as well as the variants that we understand from the medical community are here. And we are also strongly encouraging people to consider vaccination. So that is the resolution I-4. And then I-5 would be basically continuing several emergency ordinances until for another 30 days. And those ordinances are listed on, if you can bear with me, on page 6 of the proposed emergency ordinance, again, item I-5. And what we were asking council to review tonight, renew tonight, is the emergency ordinance suspending the requirements of the physical presence of council members at council meetings, the emergency ordinance regarding temporary procedures for public hearings, the emergency ordinance on allowing affordable housing units to be approved by the administrative officer, and the order requiring paraments for 25 or these ordinances, we were asked to extend those by staff and others. And it's my understanding, and I guess the mayor can clarify this, with regard to the physical presence of council members at council meetings. The idea is over the summer, we will have the hybrid meeting of Zoom plus in person, but that before September, we'll have a permanent rule or amendment to our rules of procedure on how we should go move forward with council meetings and Ways and Means Committee meetings.
So I think our intent on the meetings, my colleagues, is that we would, as we've discussed, meet in person from here on out for Ways and Means and Council, but we wanted to keep this ordinance active in the event we want to make some changes to our committee meetings. And then we still have our BAR, Planning Commission meetings are still being held virtually. We will be dialing that back in the near future to go back to in-person meetings, but we needed a little time still to work out the logistics of all that on some of those meetings and the technology. But our own Ways and Means and council meetings would be in person. And to the mask ordinance, we're in essence allowing the mask ordinance to expire. There'll be no more requirements inside or outside or anywhere. However, we do ask our citizens to practice good public health and follow CDC guidelines and to recommend that they get vaccinated. However, it's all just on a recommendation basis. There are no requirements. Councilmember Shade, Brady, then Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I read the governor's proclamation, and even if we were of a mind to extend that mask ordinance, it pretty much guts us from having that option of doing so. So jettisoning the mask ordinance requirement is just going to be in line with the governor's directive, even if we wanted to do something otherwise. And I would support the other suggestions that you have made and that Susan have proposed to us. That just makes sense what we're doing. And I would encourage our citizens to continue to practice good, safe distancing, and while indoors, wear a mask. And if you haven't, I would certainly encourage all of our citizens, let's get those numbers up on the vaccinations that we have. It's impressive what we've got so far, but still like to get at numbers a little bit high. I think what we saw as to the higher the numbers over 40%, the higher numbers that go down on people who are contracting the disease and fatality. So let's keep on encouraging folks to participate in those protocols. Thank you.
Councilmember Brady.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a quick question for Susan. So by eliminating or letting the mask mandate expire, that does not preclude a private business, for example, Councilmember Waring's favorite store, Costco, from implementing their own mask requirements. Is that correct?
That's correct. They're free to do what they would like to do.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Jackson.
That was my exact question too, to clarify what can happen inside a retail establishment. So I do think that we should make that point, and I'm sure the King Street Business District and all of the people that follow our business services announcements will be really trying to clarify that, so we take the mystery away from our business owners. But thank you.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wondering how these ordinances affect capacity at ball games or at events, things like that. Where are we on there?
So I think it depends. And I'm sorry, Mayor, do you want to answer that?
No, I was going to ask both you and Tracy if you wanted to weigh in on that.
So again, my thought on this, Councilmember Shealy, is it depends who owns the facility. And so for a long time now, the governor has lifted restrictions on venues. So venues are free to, private venues are free to make their own decisions about what guidelines they are going to follow and enforce. If it's a city-owned facility, we have been following, and I see Tracy nodding her head, and she and Mark and others have been working on a committee through the last 10 or 11 months on these questions. But if it's a city-owned facility, we've been asking the operators or the managers to follow our phased programs. And so that is where we are right now. So I don't know, Tracy or Mark, if you want to add anything to that.
No, that's exactly right. We've been, we've tried to make, sure that all special events that happen within the city are, or on city property, I should say, make sure that they are handled all the same and fairly and take into account the most current CDC guidance. So we've as everything COVID, it's been a little bit of game of whack-a-mole in following the guidance, but that's kind of where we are. And I don't know if Mark has any additional comments or Dan. There's been a whole team of us that have been working together.
No, I think, Tracy, I think you got it. We've been following started with South Carolina, our city ordinances and CDC guidance just to make it as safe as we can, but it's been consistent with every venue across the city owned by the city.
Councilmember Jackson.
And can we just ask a little more specifically then, what does that mean for the River Dogs games?
Well, upon their recent request, we reevaluated it and allowed them to increase their capacity upon their request. Now that we've gone to phase 4 and the mask ordinance has been lifted, we welcome the River Dogs to make another request to us with current guidelines and the lack of ordinances in place. We'll be happy to respond to them and adjust their capacity appropriately. Mark, you want to add anything?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to add that they've already made that request, and our response to them was after the actions the council took tonight, we would get back to them with the updated actions and reevaluate the request. So they've already made it, and we'll get back to them after tonight.
Great. All right. Any further questions or comments? Could we vote on I-4 and I-5 together? Is that too? Madam Clerk?
I was just getting ready to say we didn't have a motion on the floor, but I think
I'll move for approval.
Mitchell did.
Second.
I'll second.
Got a motion to approve I, 4, and 5 together. Any further questions? All in favor, please say aye.
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 The ayes have it. And Dan Riccio popped up on the top of my screen. And I'm once again going to shout out to him and his staff. They had a big responsibility and effort over the last year enforcing our mask ordinance. Sometimes, as you know, it wasn't popular, and they took some challenges for it. I must say, at the end of the day, they helped save lives. I'm convinced of that. So I want to applaud them for their efforts. They were just carrying out our policy. And I did have a little conversation at department head meeting this morning, and I was expressing how happy I was that we were going to be able to let this ordinance expired. But Dan made a very convincing argument that he was happier than me and probably the happiest city employee to see the mask ordinance expire. Thank you, Dan. And
yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor, and all city council for the support. My team was awesome during this entire experience and dealing with the tasks that they had to deal with. So I appreciate it. They know it. They know your support, and they thank you as well.
Great. All right. So next we'll move on to our council committee reports. First
Mr.
up,
Mayor.
Public Works.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Councilmember.
I know this is not under council communications, but I just wonder if we need to get an update from our various departments as to particularly our fleets and police and fire departments on the impact that this Colonial pipeline cyber attack has had on our access to fuel. I know that there's going to be an impact with that pipeline being shut down for a while. Just wonder if we need to get an update from them at some time this week, if there's an issue dealing with adequate fuel supply for our fleet.
Well, I of course followed it a little bit in the news myself, but haven't heard of any local update as to the impact. But if we find something out, we'll be glad to share it with council, but I'm sure it'll be widely reported in the media as well. If we could proceed with Committee on Public Works, Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was one amendment to the agreement to allow the mayor more flexibility in negotiating that Councilman Griffin spoke to during our Ways and Means. It also passed, as he said, passed unanimous at Public Works. And then the only item that you see there, the Medical District Tunnel Extension at Earhart. It's a big one. It passed unanimous. I want to certainly give thanks to Governor McMaster, give special thanks to the mayor for his one-on-one approach with Governor McMaster, Dr. Cole and his team of professionals over at Medical University. Councilman Seekings knows this, but for this extension, this flooding concern would have to wait it for the Calhoun West Drainage Project, which is probably, I don't know, a $400 million drainage project. This allows thousands of workers to be taken out of flooding by virtue of the Spring Fishburne to Tim Clark drainage project. So this is extremely cost effective to do it this way. It's a big win for our region. So I want to certainly thank all of them, especially concerned, and obviously Mr. Fountain and our engineering team as well. But with that, I move adoption of the report. Everything passed unanimous.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, our Committee on Traffic and Transportation. Councilmember Brady ran that committee this afternoon.
That's right. And I want to thank Councilmember Seekings for letting me wield the proverbial gavel this afternoon.
And Councilmember Brady, I just want to thank you for taking a call at 4 o'clock in the morning Hawaii time. So,
but we got an update on the Charleston County TST CTC project updates. And I would defer to Director Benjamin if he wants to hit any of the highlights, as it was a wealth of information that our partners at the county are doing in terms of transportation projects within the city. Is Keith on? There he is.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Happy to answer any questions as necessary. The county highlighted a number of the large-scale projects, including improvements along Maybank and Main and otherwise, but also some of the smaller projects. And I don't say small because of their impact, but small because of difference in cost of projects as well that have to do with pedestrian safety, specific signalization improvements, and otherwise. As you know, we have every other month meeting with city staff, county staff, and SCDOT staff. We also get an updated list of those projects and where they stand from Devery and Richard every other week. And so the report and the presentation they gave today, happy to provide it to council members as necessary or speak more about any individual projects. As a reminder, we did submit our transportation sales tax request list earlier this year. We are actually supposed to meet, Mayor, with you in our one-on-one later on this week to present city staff's recommendations for potential CTC projects to submit, as those are due at the end of May as well. So happy to take any questions or concerns regarding that partnership.
Councilmember Shad?
Thank you. And I was on the Zoom meeting, but my camera was acting up, and so was my audio, so I couldn't chime in. But I just want to thank Mr. Benjamin and the committee for following through with these various projects. There were several of them that are within District 9, and several of them that are involving West Ashley. And Keith, if we can get that report that Mr. Turner had submitted to us, it was an excellent breakdown of the status of several of those projects. I'd like to share that with my constituents, so they see the collaboration that the city and county are working on together in the status of several of those projects.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all for y'all's cooperation on that.
We'll send that around to everyone.
Yep. Well, thank you. The next thing we considered was the Eastside Community Development Corporation Residential Parking District Expansion, which passed out of committee unanimously, and I'll be asking for council's approval on that. We also received a traffic calming update in terms of repaired speed bumps as well as new speed bumps that are being installed. And Mr. Somerville also informed us that new petitions are being turned in that will be considered under the 2022 budget as well. And that was pretty much the breadth of the meeting. And I would ask council's consideration to pass the Eastside Community Development Corporation Residential Parking District Expansion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Councilmember Brady. Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you.
All right, next committee on Ways and Means.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, any discussion, questions? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Next, bills up for second reading. We have 10 items that I think
Move
are
that they consolidate 1 through 10, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Second.
Anybody want to break out any of those? What, it's okay to take 1 through 10 together.
Fine.
Okay, any discussion or questions on 1 through 10? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for third reading and ratification.
Second.
Second.
And a second. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. There were no bills up for first reading. And the only miscellaneous business is that our next meeting will be Tuesday, May 25th, and it will be at the James Island Recreation Center. Isn't that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Waring.
Thank you. At last meeting, I remember I said I started calling names and thanking people who worked very hard on that code of conduct ordinance. And one very important cog to that was Mr. McQueen. And I forgot to give him all due respect for what he did. And I'm gonna tell you, for the last 2 weeks, he didn't notice, but that's been wearing on my mind. To send him an email, I said, no, I need to do it publicly. I mean, he went above and beyond, and the legal team did, in reaching out to all council members, giving them an opportunity to participate. I mean, and I don't mean during work hours, I mean after hours. You can see his sincerity in it. So first, I apologize for not giving him recognition, but certainly want to give him praises and salutations tonight for the good work that he did, because it mattered. So thank you so much, Mr. McQueen.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes, I want to make a correction on yesterday when we had the ribbon cutting for the James Lewis Complex. Some of you all had missed it, but it was something great that happened that particular day. But we had a little on the agenda itself, it was a mistake there. And I wanted to correct that mistake. But in my haste, I was going so fast, I didn't look over it when we had Councilman Robert Mitchell as the Mayor Pro Tem, and I'm not the Mayor Pro Tem, so I want to make this publicly that Councilwoman Jackson is the Mayor Pro Tem. So I want to let her know that that was an oversight, and that when it was doing the agenda, this was supposed to come since last year, and they had this thing written out so far as that is concerned, and that's why it made that mistake during that time. So I just want to let her know that that was a mistake made, and I just, and that's my haste on that day. Everything was moving so smoothly, I just forgot about it.
Thank you, council member. I've seen your plaque in the shop window, so I would yield to you.
Councilmember Brady.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a quick question. I'm already getting some text. What is the official expiration date of the mask ordinance since we're letting it expire?
I think it's effective immediately. Is that correct, Susan?
Correct.
That's correct.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Masks are no longer required in the city of Charleston. There may be cases if you're not vaccinated and you're around a bunch of people, the CDC recommends it, and we would recommend it as well, but it's just a recommendation. So thanks for that conversation and those comments that allowed me, I hadn't had this problem in a while, to get all the bills signed while we were still in session. But I got that accomplished. But I did also want to share with our colleagues that weren't able to make it yesterday for the groundbreaking, what I thought was a wonderful tribute to Councilmember James Lewis and his 24 years of service and his advocacy, particularly for affordable housing in our city. He truly was a council member that represented all the people of this city, and just a terrific record of service. I don't think it could have been more fitting. I forget who first recommended we name the complex there in his honor. But it was a great idea and so appropriate. And council members Mitchell, Waring, Jackson, Gregory all made lovely comments about Councilmember Lewis and his service, so well deserved. So if you weren't there, please shout out to him and give him another congratulations. Well deserved. Councilmember Shade.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I completely left it off my calendar to be with y'all yesterday, and I wanted to be there to recognize Councilmember Lewis. And what you just said, part of the discussions, we started off with the Recreation Committee as to looking at things to give him that honor on other facilities. And it was a collaborative effort from members of the Recreation Committee to look at this option for the affordable housing, which was more fitting, I think, for him than a recreation facility or a gymnasium or something along those lines. And I think he's, I'm just so very proud of James for the work that he has given to the community and to the city. And God bless him. This is very fitting. And I will reach out to him as well. So
please do. Councilmember Waring.
Mr. Mayor, one last item on recreation, and I was going to do this at recreation report, but I don't think we have one this meeting. But those students at Clemson University and their professors and Mr. Huff, the director, did a wonderful dock and shelter over on what is known as the Turtle Pond over in Ardmore. I invite everybody to go and take a look at it. I'll bring pictures at the next meeting. I can't tell you the wonderful design that basically was put over what is a drainage collection pond. They used their resources, which went over budget. They obviously used their designs. They called on allies who came, for example, of one of the top companies that install piers for docks, came and basically put those piers in at cost. And as I said, it went over budget. This is something that's going to add to the quality of life for decades and what is now an underserved community. It is very, very much being revitalized. Also, if you go over at West Oak Forest Park by the pool, W.L. Stevens
W.L. Stevens Pool.
You know,
right.
there was a bridge that, Mr. Mayor, we kind of tussled with that for about 2 years or so. After they put in the drainage improvements on the bikeway, the pedestrian bridge was not installed. Well, it was installed, and I please go over and take a look at that bridge. I mean, again, the students at Clemson designed that. It's a wonderful cable-looking bridge. It looks like something Ms. Del Chapo that would probably be on Daniel Island, but it is off of the bikeway leading pedestrians to the W.L. Stevens Park. Again, the students at Clemson did that. We have to find some way. I got to tell you, that dock over there that they put in would have had to been in probably 6 figures, okay, had we gone out and bidded that, if not more. We have to find a way to give back so those students can do that again, other areas around the city or in the region. But the gift that they gave, I would hope that some plaque would be erected to those students, letting the people who will frequent there know who did this. And it was volunteers that did it, led by, again, the director at Clemson Extension School of Architecture down there and their professors. And it was a wonderful, wonderful event when they came, frankly, to celebrate the work that they've done. So I would hope that we find a way that they shouldn't shoulder the cost, which is a wonderful benefit to all of us. So they need to be recognized in a better way than I did today. So maybe at the next meeting, the recreation director can, Mr. Cronsford.
Oh, thank you, Councilman, for bringing that up. I'd seen the little bridge near W.L. Stevens Pool, but I haven't seen the work at the Turtle Pond yet. I knew they were going to do that. I see that Ray Huff's still got a Hollywood Square here.
Oh, he is.
I don't know if he's listening or not. Ray, are you there?
I hope he is.
He might have just left the computer on. Not as.
Maybe we can get him on at the next meeting. I'm telling you, the asset that those students are to the community is absolutely wonderful.
We'll get them to come back. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know this is spontaneous, but while we're sort of doing that spontaneous thing with the time that we have available to us tonight, I was hoping that maybe we could ask Councilmember Del Chapo to give a rendition of how she worked on the graveyard, the cemetery case in her district. I think it's amazing. The newspaper did a really good, attempt at the story, but she was instrumental in all of the behind the scenes work that got DHEC to put a stop order on the developer that was about to go forward with legal permits. There was no question about that, but they were acting, in my opinion, on the letter of the law and not the spirit of the law. And I think Councilmember Del Chapo did an amazing work in helping them appreciate the difference.
Thank you, Councilmember Jackson, for that recognition, and well-deserved, Councilmember Del Chapo.
Thank
Good
you.
work.
I just was doing my job. I appreciate that though. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Anything else to come before us this evening? Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you all. A very good meeting. And
Good night, all.
we'll see you in person.